Morning, all. It is Saturday, September 9th, 2023. Good afternoon, everybody. Let's talk today, and I'm going to use a word that blankets and used to be such a innocent word, but has come to define a whole generation and a whole sect of persons primarily in America. And it's called cosplay. I'm a Gen Xer, guys. I'm 52 years old. And I'm going to tell you, growing up in the 70s, we would dress up for Halloween. We would dress up as, vampires or ghosts, witches. Things like that. Then we had a situation or an event called Renaissance festivals. Now, I want to say, and I don't have any evidence of this, that Renaissance festivals were a product of a growing interest in a romanticized version of the Dark Ages. In other words, it's a spin-off of the Arthurian legend in books written about the Arthurian legend. These would allow people to seemingly embrace old world charm, bring interest to old world techniques and ways of life and stuff like that. And people who worked there, of course, dressed in what would then be basically called a uniform. Basically, they would dress in period similar garments. Shopkeepers, blacksmiths, knights, barbarians. And then, in the fun of it all, people would, dress to go to the Renaissance Festival. Because why should this be, limited just to people who work there? We can go and we can embrace something outside of our, 9 to 5 and in our ordinary life. We could be something different. Not just on Halloween night. Now, I'm going to tell you guys, I used to be a Rennie. Straight up, guys. I used to be a Rennie. Dressed up, camped. And back in the day, to honor the primitive camping was the only way to do it. And this was specifically done because you're honoring the Renaissance ways. People would bring, tents and people would make their own tents, and people would bring army tents and all kind of tents, sleep on the ground, drum circles, things like that. People would wander from camp to camp and share stories and experiences. And things like that, guys. But deep down inside, these people were doing this, and they were embracing this to untold extents, guys. The Texas Renaissance Festival here in the Houston, Texas area, I can't tell you how many kids were made during the 8 weeks that was the Renaissance Festival. People would plan their entire evening, their whole weekends, plan their entire year around this activity. And in all honesty, what are you getting each and every year? Add a little bit here and there to your costume to the point where you're finally now, you have 3 or 4 different sets of garb, which that's what they call it as Rennies, to dress as a different character each time you go. And I stopped going to Renaissance Festival when the millennials found it. What did the millennials do to kill the Renaissance Festival for me? Well, they broke tradition. They saw this as a place outside of Comic-Con, which Comic-Con is another event that back in the day when I was a teenager and stuff like that, let's say late 90s, late 80s, early 90s, I would go to comic book conventions. You'd go, you'd find rare comic books, buy t-shirts, things like that. Then, Comic-Con was a great, the mecca of the comic book conventions, where not only did you go to find, rare comic books or the latest t-shirts with your comic book character on it, you would meet and get autographs from famous actors and comic book artists. Even book authors would show up at Comic-Con. So it embraced the whole genre of entertainment, because some comic books became movies. So, and then the same thing started happening that was the Renaissance's eventual evolution. People dressing to go to Renaissance Festival. They would dress to go to Comic-Con. Why just go and find a comic book of your favorite character when you can dress as your favorite character? And people plan their whole lives around Comic-Con. I mean, the day that tickets go on sale, people skip work to get tickets to Comic-Con. And what are people finding? They're needing an escape from this world. They want to be something that they are not. Comic books embrace superheroes, people with abilities. It is the next evolution of the Renaissance Festival. We had people who did great things compared to what we do. We got people nowadays that, spend their whole days, scanning groceries, turning wrenches, typing on keyboards, and things like that, or dispensing money or whatever. You would go to the Renaissance Festival and you could be something completely different. You could be a fairy and flit around and, act goofy. And everybody would accept you because you were at Renaissance Festival. Comic-Con. You could leave your mundane existence, put on a superhero costume, and it really doesn't matter how elaborate your costume is. I mean, as long as you, made a effort, you were accepted. Same with Renaissance Festival. But we've now taken cosplay to a whole new level. Now, people don't want to just be, Deadpool 1 or 2 times a year at a comic book convention. They don't want to be Tinkerbell or some kind of fairy or a winch or whatever a couple of weekends out of the year. A buddy of mine named Bo, until his employer told him otherwise, used to show up for work every day in Renaissance garb. Straight up, guys, I ain't shitting you. We had a guy who worked at one of my supply houses who was such a Rennie that he used to be called Pirate at Renaissance Festival. And you know what? It became his whole persona and name. When I would go to the supply house, I'd ask for Pirate. And he would have the beard, braids with beads. And he would wear the wrist cuffs. Stuff like that. It wasn't in garb. He would dress in his uniform shirt and stuff. But he would have a torque around his neck. And wrist cuffs on. And stuff like that. And he always wore his knot belt. I mean, straight up, guys. People, and nowadays, people don't want to just be. They're finding ways to embrace that specialness. 365 now. And they've taken it to a whole new level. We ended up with cross-dressers. You know, we'd have guys who would go to Renaissance festivals dressed as winches. Straight up, ain't lying, guys. And those evolved into just straight up cross-dressing. These things, back in the day, were seen almost as funny. Bugs Bunny would dress as a girl. Golden Girls. B. Arthur's, Ceres' brother was a cross-dresser, and according to the episode, when he died, he was buried in a teddy. He was still masculine, was still married, had kids, but he liked wearing women's clothes. Now we have drag shows. And, and now the obvious evolution of drag shows is people not wanting to just be special on the weekend or anything else like that. They now want to claim they are that gender without being that gender. They want to wear those clothes 365. They want to experience not just on the weekends what it's like to be a woman. They want to go to the bathrooms. They want to say they menstruate. They want to claim that they can have kids. They want to embrace that magic. 365. South Park actually touched on this, and it's finally seeing the light of the day. One of the characters in the cartoon series South Park turned out to be gay. One of the teachers. And then he took the gay to cross-dressing. And then he took it to the next level and he got a full-on sex change. And then he went to the OBGYN and was denied service. Because OBGYNs don't mess with fake hoo-hoos. That would be a plastic surgeon's job. But then he made a speech, the South Park guy, and he had plastic surgery again and had a addictomy and became a man again. A gay man, but a man nonetheless. And what he said is, I was born a man. No amount of plastic surgery can make me a woman. I can't have kids. What is the use of being a woman if you can't have kids? Unfortunately, guys, medical science, because there is that need, it's trying to fill it in the guise of helping people who can't have kids, natural born women who have fertility issues. They're generating artificial wombs and womb transplants, guys. Cosplay is going way too far, guys. Let's go, Brandon.